you how I met my fiance, Nick. I met him when I was 13 years old, and we got together then, and we have been together for 9.5 years to date, and we just got engaged. And it's a funny story. When we got engaged, we were going to a Penguins game, and he was acting very odd, and I was actually mad at him because he was acting very odd. And then we went to the parking lot to park, and I said, okay, let's park here in the first row because we were early. And he said, no, we'll go up near the elevators. And I said, why? Who cares? Just park here. And he said, no. So we went all the way up to the 4th floor. No one was around at all. And I said, okay, well, and he said, well, I wanted to park, right near the elevators, and I didn't want my car to get hit. And I said, okay. So then I had all the tickets, and I said, here, hold these. And he said, no. And I was like, okay, fine, and I got all mad at him. And I actually put cotton in my ears because my ears were hurting and it was freezing out. So, and then I ran to the elevators because it was freezing out. And then he said, Lauren, come over here. And I said, what? And he said, look, some idiot hit my car. And I said, what do you mean some idiot hit your car? And he said, come here and look. So I ran over. It was freezing out, and I looked over, and I said, I don't see anything. And he was down on the ground in the parking lot. And I was like, what are you doing? And then he just held up the ring, and he said, Lauren, I love you. But then I couldn't hear him because I had cotton in my ears. So it was very interesting way to propose. But we got a picture right near the graffiti in the parking garage, but I said yes, and then I said I have to call my mom. So it was over pretty fast, and it was pretty wonderful. So that's my story.